Well, good afternoon, everybody. Well, it's afternoon for me. It's probably different times for all of you guys around the world. Great to have you with us. What is today all about? Well, today is all about a follow-up to the 1.12 release webinar that we did a little while ago, where we talked about add-ons and the new framework for add-ons that we released with the 1.12 release of Squirrel. Before we go into what's new today, I just want to do a recap just to make sure that everybody is up to speed. It'll be 2 or 3 minutes at most, and then we'll get into the nuts and bolts of the new capabilities. So a recap of what we announced with 1.12 is that there's a new way of doing add-ons for Squirrel, and this allows us at Squirrel to release things between releases, as it were, so new capabilities between releases of the designer. And that's what today's all about, is a release between releases. So we're probably still a little way off 1.13, should be coming later towards the end of this year. But because of the add-on capability, we can add some more functionality to Squirrel that you guys can all get hold of without us having to do a full wholesale update of the designer. But as importantly, anyone else can develop these as well. There's a framework for a developer SDK where you can do this. And we had a webinar a little while ago showing people how they can do that. If anyone's interested and missed that webinar or want more details, then by all means get in touch, and we can, whether it's you or someone you know who the skills you need are sort of JavaScript development, which are different from using Squirrel. But if you have those or you know someone who does, then by all means let us know and we can help you with that. The add-ons cover components and functions at the moment, but not connections. You can't do add-on connections yet. That's still sort of something that we're thinking about, but components and functions, as we'll see, are enough to be getting on with for now. And it's really sort of great integration with the product. We had some add-on capability before. It didn't really sort of integrate that well with the product. Now you subscribe in the marketplace to add-ons, and they integrate seamlessly with the designer, so you can use them in your projects almost as if they were just native components rather than add-ons. And the way that that's managed is by adding them in the Squirrel Marketplace. So you go to marketplace.squirrel365.io, you see all the add-ons that are there. You can use them in the Squirrel Designer, and we'll do a lot of that today, so I won't cover that. And you can also manage them in your cloud account or in the designer. You can click on your add-ons. This My Add-ons section here is available in the cloud management capability, but also inside the designer, and there you can see them, delete ones you don't want anymore, and all that sort of stuff. So that's the process for using them. We won't cover any of that today. We've done it before. If anyone wants any more details on this, let us know, and we can help you with that. So that really then brings us on to today, which is oh, sorry, actually, no, there's one thing before then. I just wanted to quickly go over the add-ons we released with 1.12. We will not go into any of the details, but just again, in case anyone's here who wasn't on the 1.12 release webinar, we released a number of add-ons which you can go to the marketplace and get today. So there's the card slider that you see here that allows you to swipe between images, a countdown timer which automatically countdowns to an event. A file loader, which allows you to put a capability in a Squirrel project that allows an end user to load up a file into the spreadsheet, maybe for preferences, maybe for data that they want to do something with. We've got an image carousel that allows you to flip between various images in different ways of doing that, different sort of animation flavors. You can pull in Lottie animations, which is a whole library of different animations. We've picked 3 Squirrel ones here, but there are hundreds of them that you can use and add to your projects. There's a way of generating QR codes, whether that's for locations or text messages or whatever it is. You can generate them inside Squirrel. There's a much requested 2-value range slider, simpler charts, typically for making smaller charts that are just in the background of things. A star rating control that allows users to rate things. This toast add-on, which pops up sort of information that then dismisses itself when people, so you can say, I have saved the results, and then it'll say you've saved, and then it'll just disappear. A YouTube player, which makes it easier to embed YouTube videos into Squirrel projects, and then some functions. Those are all components with visual aspects. The functions allow you to copy text out of out of the spreadsheet. So this just says copy out of a cell, and then you can paste that somewhere else. A history component, which takes things that are entered into the spreadsheet or cells as cells change in the spreadsheet, doesn't have to be entered, and captures the history of them. So that can be very useful to be able to do that. And a unique list, so ability to take a range in the spreadsheet and just deliver back into another range in the spreadsheet the unique values in that list. So those are all the ones that are available in the marketplace today. So if you want to come and get those, you can. And the new add-ons we're going to look at today cover 7 functions and 4 visual components, and they are not quite in the marketplace yet. They will be, all but one of them will be available shortly after the webinar today. So you'll be able to use them, everything you see here, except for one, and I'll tell you which one that is as we go through. But you should see 10 out of the 11 in the marketplace later on after we finish the webinar. So the rest of the presentation really is just in the product showing you these new add-ons. We have 7 functions and 4 visual components. The functions spread across 3 that do sort of calculations, really, 4 that do data manipulation in the spreadsheet, a bit like our data mover component in the core product, and 1 other one, which is something slightly different, but we'll come to that when we'll see that when we come to it. So we will start with the designer. So here we are in the Squirrel designer, and the functions that we get, the add-on functions, appear at the bottom of the list here for the ones obviously the ones that are built in, data mover through to timer, but then the add-ons appear in this list here. And every time you go and add one for the marketplace, it will appear down here in the there. And as I said, just to reiterate, so if we go back to the start page for Squirrel, then I can see which ones my add-ons, I got them listed there, and I can delete ones I won't want. And so that's where you manage them inside the designer. So the first thing we're going to look at is a transpose function. It's probably the simplest thing that we're going to look at today. And this is just the capability to transpose, i.e. switch rows and columns for a range of data in the spreadsheet. This is something which is possible in Excel using some of the new array functions, which we are looking to support in the future, but we don't today. So this is a way that we can support that before doing the work to support those array functions. And it's really straightforward. What we want to do is we want to take this and switch it so that products are in the columns and the months are in the rows. And the way that we do that, we just come in here. I'm going to add my transpose function, add it on there. Behaves just like a normal Squirrel function. I say, where's my source data? I'll give it that there. Where do I want the transpose data to go? And it's so down there like that. And what we'll see is when we run it, the transpose function does its work and moves that over there. So that's the same data, but switched over. So obviously now it's there. We can maybe have another data table in here, and we can bind that to there. Maybe take out the spreadsheet. So there we go. You probably wouldn't want both in your project, but you probably want one or the other. Or maybe it's just transient to do some calculations on or something. But that allows you to see it both in its initial form and its updated form. Now, the other thing that's important here, if I was to add in a slider, let me add in a slider, and I'm just going to tie that to, let's say, beta for March, like that. Then that's going to change this number down here. But what happens, you'll notice if I come in here, as I change that number, it changes in both of the tables. So this is updating this set of data, and then the transpose function is updating this. So it's all live. It doesn't just do it and it sits there. It's all live, so that if you load more data in, or the user makes a change to the data, or something else makes a change to the data, it's all dynamic and updates. So that's the transpose function. We've had 1 or 2 people asking for it. That's why it's there. It's very, very straightforward to use. Just 2 properties to work with. So the next one is a similar one. Again, very, very simple. And this is called text join. Now, there is a join capability in the product, which will join text together. But what you'll notice here is that I've got a space in my list. So maybe what I'm doing is I want to put this together, maybe to drive a parameter to a query, a filter query in a database or something. And when this the join function leaves empty. It doesn't cope with empty cells. It leaves the empty cell in there, so you can see that between Dirac and Feynman, there's an empty one there. And really, the text join function is just a way of getting around that. So I come down here and add the text join. Again, it's very simple. This one's only got, well, it's got 4 properties, so I can take the input data. And then I'll write the output just to the cell under here, because it's going to combine it together using the delimiter, which by default is a comma. Now, if I don't ignore the blanks, then it produces exactly the same as the function, as the join function. But if I do ignore it, then it ignores that, and so I now get a properly formed list missing out that there. So very small change on the what's built into the product. But again, it was something that somebody needed. We could add it, we could deliver it as an add-on function between releases, so it just makes us rather more reactive to things like that. Obviously, one of the things we want to do is there is a text join function in Excel which gives you the option to do this, so we should support that in the fullness of time, but that would require an update to the designer, and so it's good that we're able to do that in here. So so that is the text join, and so those two, the transpose and text join, are very simple. The next one is slightly more chunky, and it is a trend. This is the ability to create a regression line trend inside Squirrel, so calculate it dynamically based on data. So what we have here is we have a chart which is titled "Need to add a trend." We have some data, and we want to stick a trend line through this. Now this chart is already graphing the A1 to K3, which is actually no, it's out to M, so it's graphing all this set of data here, and we want to fill in the trend line so we see it on the graph. So again, come to our functions and we open up, let's put in the trend line in there. And again, very simple to use. We say, well, what data do you want to put a trend line through? Well, it's just this data here. We'll stick with a linear trend. We'll look at that in a minute. And where do we want to put the analyzed data? We'll put it right out to here, so because eventually we're going to forecast forward. But for the time being, we're not going to forecast anything. And having just bound those two things, I can now hit debug. And what we see is that has now done a linear regression trend on that data, and it's now plotted in the chart. So that's a dynamic trend. If that data were different, then it would replot that as a different set of data. So you can put trend lines through. You don't have to put it in a chart. You could use it for other purposes, but most people, you want to use it to do for a chart. Now, what we can do is say, well, I want to extend that forward, and because we bound the output data to going forward, I say I want 3 points forward. It's forecast at 3 points forward, or maybe I've got 5 points, so I might as well say I'll forecast it all the way out to here. So that's giving me a regression sort of forecast based on a linear regression. Now we can, as I said before, we can change the type of the regression. So it might be, I think, and you have to be careful here, but you can't just sort of say which one looks good. You have to understand the data and say, well, yeah, no, there's a reason for believing that this would be an exponential growth. And so there, if it was, then that would be exponential. But to show how you have to be careful, if I was then to say, well, actually, maybe it's logarithmic, then that would give me a very different view of the data. So you have to understand the data and choose what's appropriate. So if you're just putting a best fit line through, it's probably best just do a linear one, but welcome to use all these other ones as well. Now, as well as that, it's often useful to get the statistics out of that trend. And so the first thing we can get out of here is the equation. So I click on here, and then let's maybe go to exponential and say debug. Then this shows me the equation that it's using to generate that line. Y is 2.2 e to the power of 0.238. So if you want that, you could maybe put that in a piece of text to show people what is there. Notice that if I go linear, then I get a different one. It's y equals mx plus c, which perhaps all of us remember from school, albeit a long time ago. But if you want, sometimes you don't just want it as a piece of text. You want to get the coefficients of that, so you can do something with it, and it allows you to do that as well. So you can get those coefficients as numbers as well as this piece of text. And finally, it allows you to put in the R-squared value. The R-squared value is an indication of the goodness of fit of the regression, and here we've got a goodness of fit of 0.933. So you can get that out, and maybe it may be worth labeling the chart with that so that people know what's going on. So very easy to use, but it extends the capabilities of Squirrel both in charts. I mean, we have put some trend lines on some of the charts, but then you can only use those in charts. Here you can get it in your data and do whatever you need to do with it once you've done the regression. So that is so that's the trend. The next one we're going to look at is another function, which is a sort. And we actually got two sorts. We've got a sort of a simpler sort, a straightforward sort, and then a more advanced sort of sort, which does a little more. So I'll show you both of those. The first one is very straightforward. We just come in here, we add it in. I'm going to add a sort, and so we've got this data here. And actually, I could just sort a set of numbers. So I say, well, I just want to sort this set of numbers. I'm going to sort it based on column 1 because it hasn't got any headings. And I'm going to sort it descending, and I'm going to write it out to there. And just like the other functions that we've just seen, I run this, and there, that's sorted it. Actually, why is it a bit weird? It's because you see that says that's taking the 1 as a header because I didn't switch off headers, which is my fault. So there we go. That's why it looked a bit wrong, but there, that's right there. But obviously, it makes more sense to maybe do it with some placeholders or some names for the data. So if I do that, then what we'll see, there we go, we get them whole table sorted. Again, that is dynamic. So if the data changes, this will, if it's reloaded or input by the user, then that will change. And we can show that maybe by adding a slider here, another slider, and then maybe making that 1 to 10 and binding it into the value of, let's say, E. Now, if I run this, what we'll see is as I move this, you'll see E moving around. Apologies for that. I will work on that afterwards. But what should happen is that the E should go up and down as you change the value of it as we go through the data. So that's sort of a fairly simple example, but we can do it with more sophisticated data. So here, what I'm going to do, maybe remove this sort and just add another one so that we add that there. So this time my data does have headers. So then I can say I'm going to take all of this data here, and I'm just going to sort it based on, so I can give it a number, but because I've got headers, I can give it a column name. So I might say, I'm going to sort this on, actually, no, I won't. I'll sort it on area like that, sort it descending. I'm going to put the data in here. It goes down to about 105. So I'll give it there. And now if I do that, there we've got this all sorted by area. So we can do more than just sort of 2 columns or 1 set of data. Obviously, we can sort that ascending or descending depending on which we want. And also you can include some or all of the rows. So I can just say, well, I only want the first 10 rows here. And so I'm going to sort that there. So lots of different possibilities. Obviously, all these things, many of these things are bindable. I can bind to a different name of a different column to change the sort. I can bind to a different number for top or bottom. One thing I can't do here is bind to ascending or descending, but we can do that with the more advanced sort that we'll look at in a second. And so if we do that, if we open the advanced sort, then we have a slightly different, well, a very different way of specifying the sort. So this time I'm going to add an advanced sort. And this one now, I could do the same. I say, well, I'm going to take the same set of data and do that there. But the way that we specify the sort is not really by choosing columns in the property sheet. It's by giving it a sort specification. And the sort specification is basically 2 rows deep and as many columns as you want to return. And you say, so in this, I'm going to get country and area. I'm going to sort it descending, and I'm going to get the first 10 rows out of this. And so if I say that's my sort specification, so I say that's there, and then I say the sort output, I'm going to bind into here. And again, we'll put that down to, actually, I'll put it across there, like that. And if I run that, then that's giving me the first 10 of the country sorted ascending by area. And this is where, because this is just a value in the spreadsheet, if I, so for example, if I, here I got a, say a toggle switch, if I got a toggle switch, and that data insertion is going to be ascending or descending, and I'm going to put that into here, then what you'll notice if I do this, if I toggle this, it changes the sort. So the sort order is dynamic. I can switch it based on the components because this is all dynamic here. If I put a slider on here, then I can do that to there, and the similar sort of thing that will give me sort of up and down on the number that I'm returning back there. So this makes it easier to make it dynamic and more in control. One of the two other things you can do here that you can't do in the simple sort, if I insert a column and say region here, then say if I need to rebind my sort columns. So my specification is that there, and my output is going to be here like that. So I've got area and region in here, but what you can't do on the other sort is I might want to say I'm going to sort region descending. So now that's doing two sorts. It's doing the sort of region, and then inside region, it's doing the area sorts. If you want to do multiple sorts, then you need to use the advanced sort to do that. You notice this is now a descending area. If I was to say that was, see, then the regions stay the same, but inside them they're sorted differently. So, and the final thing I can do here that I couldn't do the other is from the same set of data. So if this is a big set of data, then I might want to do a couple of or a number of different sorts. So I can add a second specification in here. This is going to be that one there. That output, maybe I'll put down here. And so this one's different. So actually I'll go back to descending for this, and then we've got two of these now, one going one way, one going the other way. There's no reason why that has to be the same. It could be do that on density or whatever. So I could say, I could type rather, density like that, then we're getting, that's now area on here and density on there. And so you're, so it's, yeah, it allows you to do multiple sorts on the same set of data. If you want to do both those sorts with a simple sort, you'd have to rebind to the data, and it would be a little more cumbersome. So that's the two sorting add-on components. Then the next two are functions which allow you to manage data. One was, it came up in a couple of projects that we were working on, where people needed to manage a table, so inserting and deleting rows from a table. So here we have a table of data, which has got 4 products, alpha, beta, delta, gamma, with some revenue and cost data. And what we want to do is just to be able to allow the user to enter more data into this table. And we do that with this one called add remove rows. And we say, we give it a table range. And we say that's the table there. You need to give it extra rows so they can expand as it gets more data. We want to insert here. The row we're going to insert is this one there. We can insert it at the top of the table, up here, at the bottom of the table, obviously at the bottom, or in a random position if you want to do that. And then we need a trigger cell. So we'll take that K cell there, do the normal like that, and I will just add a push button there that's going to action that. So insert, and that's going to take that one and post it over to that one. So so now we've got that. What I need to do is go to my, I had that already. I'll do it from scratch. Or did I have it? Oh, maybe I did. So I'm going mad. I've been going through this today, so I just have to do it again. So the table where I did just do this, sorry. So I've got the table range, insert, rows to insert is this one here. And then the trigger cell is going to be that there. So what we'll see now, if I come and debug this, is if I click insert, it's inserting this at the top. If I change this to like that, maybe, and some more data in there, then it's going to be inserting that. So it's a way of just managing data into a table of data. You can do this using formulas in the spreadsheet and data movers, but it's very cumbersome, and this just makes it much easier. And then, of course, we might want to remove rows as well. So we need to do that with a second. Add another one here. Again, it's going to be the same table range, but this time we're going to say delete. We're going to delete the first row, and I'll put the trigger cell here. I'm going to copy these down so they're the same. Copy this button across here, and then the button will just do the second trigger here, like that. So now we have this this delete function, and let's just so we know, like that. So now we've got the delete function there. Actually, probably ought to do that as well. Then this is going to delete the first one. So if I insert 3 epsilons, then I click delete, and it's deleted those 3. If I click one more, it'll delete the alpha. So that allows you to insert and delete from a table. Obviously, one other thing you probably want to do here is to take this table and say I'm going to take its the position that I've selected in it and insert it maybe into that cell there. Because what we want to do is go back to my delete function, then I can give the row index for that position there. So now what I can do is I can say, well, I've maybe insert 2 epsilons. Oh, I don't want that second one. I can click on that and delete, and that deletes the second one. If I click on delta, it'll delete the delta. So you can delete specific rows to build a UI that allows users to manage their manage that table. So that's just a nice way of managing a table of data, however it's being updated. I say you can probably do everything you've seen there using functions and data movers, functions in the spreadsheet and data movers, but it is very complex, and this makes it really very straightforward. And then the final data manipulation function that we're going to look at is the input manager. And this is, I can find it here. Oh, there it is. So this is almost like a reverse data mover. So what I've got here is I have a table, again, alpha, beta, gamma, product and price. And this data mover does is when I click on this table, it inserts the row index inserts in here, and then this data mover moves that row of data into here. So if I then say I click on beta, then the price and the text beta goes in there. But what I want to do is I want to be able to click on beta and then change these values so that it changes the table. Now there is a way to do that in the current product, and that would be to have a set of a slider and a text input for each row, and based on the position dynamically make these visible or invisible, and they all be on top of each other, which even for 4 rows is a bit onerous, but for maybe 20 rows in here it would be pretty unmanageable, and it would just bloat the squirrel file. So what we can do instead is to use the input manager. And so the input manager, the way that works, if I can get it here, input manager, there we go. So I say I want a source of data, and that source is going to be this input here. And I want the destination, and the destination is going to be in there. So it's doing that. So the data mover moved it out into here, and this is doing the reverse of putting it back in. And I'm going to say I can do it by cell, by row, or by column. In this case, I want to do it by row, and I want the row index I'm putting it back in to be that position that I selected in here. And I can do a trigger cell if I want to wait till both things are finished, but I'm just going to do it on the refresh of the data, so it should just work like this. So now if I do that, then what I can do is I can say I click on gamma, and then if I do that, you see it's changing the gamma price and the gamma text. But if I click on beta, now the same component is now changing beta. So I've only got one text box and one slider, but I can use them to update different things here. So if you've got sort of a number of inputs you need to do, and whether there's a column of inputs, a row of inputs, or just a cell of inputs, then this really is a time-saving device to save you to having to manage many components, to one for each of the different inputs you have. So it's really quite a nice little bit of data manipulation in the spreadsheet. So that's the calculations and the functions. There is one other, so the calculations and the data manipulation, there's one other function that we're going to look at which doesn't really come under either of those. And that is one which is called as of a size and position animator. And this is interesting because it takes something that's always been possible in Squirrel, which is to move things around the canvas based on their X and Y coordinates, but takes it sort of to the next level. So for example, if I come out of here and I've got my SaaS revenue, many of you, probably all of you will have seen this before. And what I have here is I have a set of inputs that are all in a container. And what I might want to do is to have them appear. And I can just do dynamic visibility and say, hey, presto, they appear. But we might want to animate it in. Makes the UI look nice. It just gives a nicer feeling. So we're going to do that using one of these size and position animators. So what I'm going to do is put that here, a toggle to bring this in. And so then the toggle, I'm going to insert its value into here. So a very simple toggle, just going to change the value to act as my trigger. And then what I'm going to do, so I've got this here, and I'm actually going to start position. It's going to be off the screen. So I'm going to say X position. That's the X position of this container here. And I'm going to say, well, it's currently 0. So I'm going to bind that to there. So it's where it is. But I'm going to actually set it to minus 260. Notice its width is 260. So that takes it just off the screen. You can still see its handles there. And the position I want it to go to is position 0. And so what I can do is I can add my size and position animator there. And so this says I'm just going to do position size. I can make things grow and shrink in exactly the same way. So I'm just going to say its X position is there. That's what's bound to the X position of the container. And then the animation parameters. So I want to move it to, I can move it to or move it by. I'm going to move it to this value here, which is 0. So it's going to go from 260 to 0. And I want to trigger it based on that trigger cell, which is this cell that I had here. I don't want any delay or anything like that. So that should be enough. If I bring in here, I do that, it moves it in, which is is nice, but it's I might make that a little quicker. So if I do that, settings here, duration maybe 0.25 seconds, then that you'll see that comes in much more quickly. But what you can also do, and this is really nice, sort of add, is you can say I've got a sort of movement type, it's called an easing type. So I can say I want it to be elastic, and elastic actually it probably needs to be a little longer to appreciate it. And so now what I do is I come in and it goes boing and bounces in. I can also do a real bounce, which is slightly different. And it's just a really nice, it just brings things in, it makes the UI dynamic. And obviously, I haven't wired anything up to make it go out again, but I've done that in one I prepared earlier, which is here. And so if I preview this, it just sort of, I can go, bring it in, slide out, bring it in. It's really nice. And of course, when it's in, it's just like normal Squirrel. I can change these. I can change all of this and do whatever it is that I want to do, and then make it pop out again. So it's just a really nice way of doing that. And there are a couple of things that I sort of, if I show you here, there are a couple of some people have been. We had a couple of people who had advanced access to this, and I think it's the. If you look at that, it's a really nice way of moving backwards and forwards. This is just using the same animator. You notice it sort of slows down. It sort of doesn't just go zip, zip. It sort of eases into position, which is why they're called easing. And then this is a nice one. This is a normal sort of dashboard. But what you'll notice is this logo animates. So you can animate the logo and notice that little bounce there at the end. It's quite a nice one. And that actually also happens if you refresh it. It comes in. So again, just nice little touches to be able to do bits and pieces to animate things. It makes a huge difference when people engage with the user interface that they got. So it's just a nice little extra to be able to do that. So those were the functions: transpose, text join, and trend, calculations in the sheet, sort, advanced sort, add and remove rows, input manager as data manipulation, and then the size and position animator. Now, I said I'd tell you it's the size and position animator which is not going to be available right after the webinar. We've got a little more work we need to do on that before we release it, so that will be coming in the next couple of weeks or so. but all the rest, as I say, will be available shortly after the webinar. So that was the functions, and now the 4 others were the 4 component demonstrations, and these are so whereas the functions might be a little dry because they're just all moving data around, it's much sort of more visual, obviously, with components, because that's their reason for existing, is being visual. So the first one is, again, a very simple one, and it's an alert icon. And it's just the ability to have something that flashes that says this is good, this is okay, or this is bad. So what I have here is I've got a set of data. Again, there's only alpha, beta, gamma this time. I've got some sales, and I've got over, under targets. This target here, which is controlled by the slider, currently at 30. It just does the subtraction to say whether this is over or under target. And what we really want is next to here, I mean, we could color the cell something, but I want a little visualization that says it's good, bad, or neutral. And whereas we got all our add-on functions from the function menu, we're getting our add-on components from here. I'm going to add an alert icon there, and I'm going to make it smaller so that it fits alongside the table like that. I'll copy it twice, pull that down there, and then I can line them up and spread them out. So there I've got, actually maybe I should have done that a bit, maybe a little more careful. Spread them out there. There we go. And what I want to say is that is going to, so it just takes one value, which is going to be, and the value is either positive, 0, or negative, and it'll give you the different colors. And obviously we can change the colors here. I can either bind them to the spreadsheet or put them somewhere else, but that's just obvious. And so here I have that. So now I have a little sort of icon, little light against each one. And obviously, as I change these, they change. It's hard to see them because only when it's actually 0 that it goes yellow, but they are all going through yellow as we go out. And so, yeah, dynamically updates. Very straightforward component. We've seen it in a number of dashboards. Again, possible to do something similar with images, but this just makes it easier and neater to do it. But also because it's not just for alerting things, you can also use it for other purposes. For example, if you wanted to have a Halloween lantern that lit up with different random little sort of chain of lights, you could do that as well. Just thought I'd do that for, and all that's doing is those same components, just driven with custom colors on a random update of things. It was this is, I say inspired by, it's not very inspirational, but inspired by, I remember years ago someone with Excelsius did a Christmas tree with baubles on it, so I thought I'd do a Halloween one there. So there we go. That's a little diversion there. So that's the first one, tiny component alert icon, which makes adding those sort of things much easier to a project. The second one is one that actually we were requested only a few weeks ago, and we added it to this list again, talking about being able to do things between releases. And this is a gradient background. So obviously we can have backgrounds in Squirrel with rectangles, but they're all flat colored. So what we want to do is to add a gradient background, so you can get some of the more sort of faded backgrounds. So if we come down here, I'm going to add this gradient background here. And it's very easy. You put it on, and it's just a piece of artwork that helps maybe delineate pieces of the dashboard. And it comes with a number of presets, so I can sort of say different grays, maybe dark blue of Squirrel, the light blue of Squirrel. I come down here, Starfall. They're just, I mean, you might want to use these. I quite like ice green. But if you don't want to use them, then you can have a custom version. So I can set a custom gradient, and here this gives you 2 colors. But maybe I could change those colors. So I'm going to say I'm going to go from red. Color 2 is going to be green, and then I can add a third or more colors. And maybe that's going to be a blue. So red to green to blue, and each color. If there's nothing in this stop, then the first color starts at 0, the second color at 50. They're basically spread from 0 to 100, depending on how many colors. But I can change that, so I can go to color 2 and say I want that to be at 33, which moves it up a bit, or 66 down, or maybe 90, make it even down there. So I can change those And so I can also change the direction, so I can make it at 90 degrees, which does it left or right rather than 180, or if 180, or if you put it at 0, it does it the other way, the other way up. Depends what you want. You can also round the corners on this, so I can say that's 75. Then so there you go. You can maybe match it to other things you've got in your project. Now, obviously, all of this can be bound into the spreadsheet. So, for example, if I bind color 1 to red, color 2 to blue, color 3 to yellow, then I might want to bind the stop of color 2 to a cell there, say 50, and then I'm going to bind the gradient to 180 and the corners to there. And what I've now got, I can bring this on here. I've got all of those things controlled by some sliders, so I can sort of move. So you see what happens when I change the stop, it moves from 0 to 100. I can change the gradient angle. It gets a bit psychedelic. Change the style of the colors. I could even animate. This animates the gradient angle, so it just spins it around, and sort of you can do all sorts of weird things. Not entirely sure why you'd want to do that, but it just shows you sort of the range of possibilities. I suspect most of it will be done without all this sort of nonsense, just using some nice background gradients to make projects look a little nicer. So that's I suspect there'll be a lot of use of that very nice little extra component. On to the last two, and the last two are my favorites of the day. The first one is going back to a different era. So many years ago, with Excelsius, which also had add-on components, I wrote a globe that you could put into your projects. And so it's nice to see that we are now adding that same capability into Squirrel. So here, what we have is some data about all the countries of the world with their IDs and numbers and some colors, and we'll see what the colors are for in a minute. And so I can come in here, I can click on the globe, and it will give me a globe inside my project. If you just want a globe without any data, you can do that. You can turn on rotations. You can even rotate it in the designer. Maybe make that a bit faster, spin the world more quickly. I think I'll turn that off before we get seasick. You can start it as rotation of 0 is along the Greenwich meridian. If I do 180, then it's the meridian's the other side. This is now down the back of the world. Well, I say the back of the world. That's from a very UK perspective. I don't think the Australian New Zealanders think that it's the back of the world. But anyway, we'll leave that for the time being. And but we can also obviously add data. This is Squirrel. We can add data to this. So I can go in here and say, I'm going to take this data here for the 252 countries, and this is just random data. And once we've got data in, well, I should have said before, obviously you can customize this. I can change maybe the land color to something else. So you can see different, you can make it sort of look differently. You can the sea color, the line color. But what I'm going to do here is having applied these numbers, and I can apply a heat map. So that's now the darker it is, the larger the number, so you can start to see a heat map on there. And then if you've got the tooltips on here, so when I run it, if you want, you can see the values. So that's, yeah, the dark ones. Sorry, I say it's all random data, but it shows you that. But then we can also, the map is clickable. So when I click on it, I can see this. So let's just make this more obvious. So I'll make this maybe a little bluer color like that. So that when I click it, it will become that color. So if I come in here, actually it's easier to see if I turn the tooltips off. I come in here, then I can click on these, and it'll highlight different ones. And if I want to maybe use that as a selector to drive something else in the spreadsheet, I can insert that into. Let me put this maybe right at the top here. I can insert that into a selection in the worksheet. So now if I come in here, if I click on there, you'll see that I've got I get the code and the name of the country. I have to bind it to 2 cells to get that, and so you have that there. So you can use it as a selector to drive other things. So if you wanted to select a country, that could do that, and maybe pop up a table with particular data in it for that country. So it's quite nice. It's quite a nice little capability there, and there we have the rotating globe. So you could just leave it, see which countries are You can also sort of spin it by picking it up in here. So just a nice little extra visualization. So that's the globe. And the final one for today, which is I'm be interested to see if anyone finds a use for it, but I really like it. Maybe it shows more about sort of me and my love of things retro. What we have is a flip display. Is this the right one? No, that's the wrong one. A different one. Let me. I've lost it. That's a shame. We'll have to use this one instead, but that's okay. So what it is an old style railway sort of flipboard that allows you to display a piece of text or numbers and dynamically change between them. And as I say, in that sort of flip style between, like that. So if I come in here and the text to display is currently this, I don't know where a loon came from, but there we go. I can change it up to actually, no, what I'll do is if you type something different in here, so then it'll do that. I might sort of say, else you see it, just a nice little visualization, and of course it's driven from the spreadsheet. So if I was to that in here like that, then because there's logic in the spreadsheet which has got a timer changing that, then it just the message in there. It's just a really nice little visualization. But there is another point to talking about this, not just because I like it as a visualization. Well, first of all, I'm really curious. I'd love to see if anyone finds a use for this and what they want to do with it. But the second thing is, it comes from a component online. This site here is a chap in the Netherlands who has written this component and made it available as sort of as open source on an MIT license. So he's basically says that you can use it for whatever you want to do. And there are many components out there like that. And so the vast majority of the work of creating this was this chap in the Netherlands doing it, but we've wrapped it up as a Squirrel component. So one thing that you might want to look out for is you see components that are available online and you want to see them in your Squirrel projects, then by all means chat to us and see if we can bring them in as add-on components, or you can get someone else to bring them in as add-on components. It really does open the world, open things up to a world of different things. So that's the that's where they're the UI components, the alert icon, the gradient background, the globe, and the flip display, and to add to the 7 functions that we saw earlier on. As I say, all of these will be available shortly after the webinar, and you'll find them in the marketplace. As I say, if you or someone you know wants to develop an add-on, then you can go to the developer portal in that tab in your Squirrel Cloud account and develop away. As I say, there's a webinar online on demand about how to go about that, and more than welcome to suggest others. I can't promise to put them in immediately, but as you see here, we do have the flexibility now to do this between releases. So hopefully we can add them as we need them, as the requests come in. Thanks for being with us for this today, and good afternoon from London. Thanks.